Have Valerie Fox, Executive Director of the Digital Media Zone, moderating our panel today. In today's session, Val will engage our panelists in a dynamic dialogue about risk-taking and entrepreneurship at Ryerson. For those of you who may not know Val, Val is Director of Ryerson's Digital Media Zone, DMZ. With more than 25 years' experience in the creative industry, Val is an active advocate of the user experience. Val's experience in facilitating organizational change, coaching, project management, innovation, communication, strategy, user experience, and creativity was the perfect fit for her initial role at Ryerson, facilitating student engagement. She has carried these skills over to her role at the DMZ, where she is principally responsible for making industry and institutional connections to bring partnerships and collaboration to the DMZ. Ultimately, Val lends her expertise and leadership to the DMZ's long-term goal of fostering innovation within Canada. Joining Val, we have our panelists, Marsha McEachrane, Director of Ryerson International, Caroline Konrad, Director, Career Services, Student Affairs, and Brandon Smith, Residence and Education Coordinator, Housing and Residence Life. Please join me in welcoming Val and our panel.
Thank you, Jan. This is pretty exciting for me to be speaking to all of you. I'm seeing faces that I'm so happy to see again, who I haven't seen for a while because we've been working so hard in the DMZ, and so thank you all for coming. This is also exciting for me to be able to speak to all of you about entrepreneurship. So before I even get started, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but also our panel is going to be sharing their stories. I first want to know who knows what entrepreneurship is? Does anybody know? Anyone want to share what they think? Arden? Right. Do you consider yourself entrepreneurial?
I do.
I think you are too.
But I don't like the risk-taking part, so that's why I would rather be entrepreneurial versus entrepreneurial.
I think, but there's a lot of risk in being an entrepreneur too, and we'll talk about that in our panel. If you don't mind, and sorry to have to do this, but I just would like the tables to be so that we can see each other a little bit. Can we just tilt the tables a little bit? Do you mind? Sorry. Because otherwise it's not like we're talking to one another. Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't fall.
Yeah, mine.
Okay. I think that's probably perfect. As long as you guys don't fall off.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a safety net.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay.
I'm taking a risk already.
That's right.
Well, this was very entrepreneurial, by the way.
Yes.
Just say.
Yes. Indeed, Val.
Were you going to say something? Yeah. Hi.
No, I was just going to answer the question. But for us, seeing that it's working within the construct that you're afforded, but seeing the opportunities within that to sometimes turn some of the things that we do on a regular basis and expand it out to a different group that we might not have thought of. In our case, in the Chancellor, would be to increase enrollments in a different perspective.
So spreading the love, right? Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we'll get going on this. What I wanted to start off, because we are going to be talking about creating impactful change, I wanted to tell you that last week, on May 4th, I was really fortunate to hear our mayor, John Tory, speak. And he was talking about the fact that Toronto is a great city. And he said it's a great city and it's doing well because of the people who are in the city. The people themselves are trying to make the city a better place. Well, that's what I think that Sheldon Levy is doing for Ryerson. Sheldon Levy is ensuring that he can support things that we want to do to make the university a better place. And I believe that every one of us in this room can do that and should do that. We are in a university that is just rising. It's a rising star. We're getting the reputation of being a university that's innovative and entrepreneurial. And every one of us has the responsibility to help make it better. So I think it's kind of awesome. And this is where we become a community rather than just going to work. And I'm going to make an assumption that you're all here because you want to be entrepreneurial. Am I right? Okay, that's really cool. So I'm going to start out with a quote, and then I'm going to have you meet the panelists. This is from Seth Godin. I don't know how many people read Seth Godin? Yeah. He influences me a lot. But this was great. I don't know why. It just came up May 3rd. The question each of us has to answer about the institution we care about is, does this place exist to maintain and perpetuate the status quo, or am I here to do the work that the radical founder had in mind when we started? So right now, I will say that the radical founder, I mean, it's a big word, but it's Sheldon. And what is it that he would like us to be? And if you thought about it, could it be the quest for growth and for meaningful, impactful change for the university? So Seth goes on and says, all of us are part of organizations that are started by outliers, by radicals, by people who cared more about making a difference than fitting in. And that's what I think intrapreneurship is all about. And that's why I'm proud to be an entrepreneur, and I'm proud to be amongst all of these wonderful entrepreneurs. So I want to introduce you to Marsha, and Marsha is the director of Ryerson International, and to Brandon, and to Carolyn. And they're going to all talk about the stories of what they're doing and how they got to where they are today, but also about what they would like to see happen at Ryerson, what they would like to see happen even in their own lives as entrepreneurs. Before I get there, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the DMZ, and then we'll move over to our discussion. So just 5 minutes. That's it. Because I wanted to talk about the DMZ is very entrepreneurial as well. So the DMZ is, and it's not about a person being entrepreneurial, it's about something being entrepreneurial. The DMZ started with a vision, and it was this vision. It was the vision of Sheldon, and he said that innovation and entrepreneurship are key for universities to stay relevant in Canada's booming digital economy. He knew that Ryerson had to change so that we could rise up with this new digital economy, what it means to our students, what it means to our young people. The world is changing. It is changing for all of industry, all of government, all of academic institutions, and most of all, our young people are going to be changing the world. So how are we going to help our young people to change the world? That's what this is all about. And the DMZ, with that premise, grew to be number 5 in the world last year and number 1 in Canada. It's huge. And it was because we had the momentum, the vision for us to reach for. Our stats are amazing. We've helped create over 1,600 jobs. We've helped over 170 companies. We have a 73% success rate, which is phenomenal. Again, this was all done by people who really, really cared to make this happen. But it's interesting, it's not just about the DMZ. The DMZ, yes, is wonderful, but it's also been inspiring a lot of other activity that's going on here, where people, faculty members, and administrators, and students are doing amazing things. And our revolution at Ryerson has changed. We are inspiring and stimulating entrepreneurship and innovation through these hackathons and meetups and all kinds of things that are getting students to get together, getting us to get together. It's amazing. And then we're creating zones like the social ventures zone that Monica heads. And then also we have the design fabrication zone, the fashion zone. We have a new legal innovation zone. And we have the new launch zone, which is helping our students now become entrepreneurs. And we have places where we grow companies, like the DMZ, or like the DMZ that we actually have in India right now with our partnership with the Bombay Stock Exchange. But most of all, we're working with our community, so we're keeping up with what others are doing, and we're bringing them into the fold, too. This is the new classroom. The new classroom has the lectures, but it also has these places where there's collisions, where we meet together. We have serendipitous types of meetings where we make change. That is what Ryerson's all about. We removed barriers. The idea of the DMZ was created offside. We created it like a skunk works, offside, so it didn't interrupt what was going on in the university. And as it grew, we brought it into the university, not disrupting it, but kindly, nicely, so that it adds value rather than shakes everything up. We started with great talent. You know Hossein Ranama. He was getting his PhD when all of this started. He was instrumental. He was a co-founder with me to create the DMZ. Not only has he got a great company called Flybits, but now he's influencing Ryerson with new types of education. We bet on passion. Students like Michael and Thiago, who were in their 2nd and 3rd year in engineering and started a company that started with a prosthetic arm that worked with brainwaves. They've now created a company that is called Bionic Labs that have bionic legs that help paraplegics to walk. The company's just gone public. These guys are like 26 and 27 now. Creating critical mass of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. It's just about getting all of us together as a community where we're all helping each other, supporting each other. I have to say, just a little bit on the side, that how we work our organization at DMZ is it's very flat. It's not hierarchical at the DMZ. We all have our roles, but we take each other's roles when they need help. We're there to help each other. We're there to support, because our job is to help the entrepreneurs. To do that, we have to support ourselves too. We're building a reputation as a go-to place for innovation. We had people like Prince Charles come. We're bringing in companies from other universities, but also other countries like India and Brazil and China and Israel and South Africa. Most of all, we're inspiring entrepreneurial thinking. As entrepreneurs, you're understanding that you're thinking out of the box. You do not settle for status quo. You make change because it has to happen so that we can have a better university, a better world. So we have new kinds of classrooms, as I said. We have fashion zones that are these places where we're cultivating entrepreneurship. We also have a new master's program where you can graduate with a degree, but also graduate with a company. We have things called Startup School, which is really cool. This is where you're going to have a choice, just-in-time learning. Jump into a course if you want to. You don't even have to get credit for it. Jump in because you need it. Jump out when you don't. And then we also have things like super courses. I was talking about Hossein, what value he's bringing to the university. He's coming up with ways of bringing computer science students and design students and also business students together to work on challenges that industry are facing. So that's all I really wanted to tell you about what we're doing. I'm letting you know that this is very possible. We started small. We were only in 6,000 square feet, a handful of people. And now we're helping over 420 people at a time. And I have a team of 28 people. It's beautiful. I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud that we're now taking it and spreading this to other universities. It's awesome. So let's now talk to the entrepreneurs that we have here. And I wanted, what I'd like this to be is a free-for-all conversation. So please don't wait for me to pick on you, if you will. I will if there's a lull. But what I wanted to know from each one of you, well, just to start it off, is what drives you? So Marsha, talk a little bit about what you do, but also what drives you to be successful.
So at Ryerson International, for those of you who may not be as familiar with us, to describe it simply to you in terms of within the context of the university, we do everything that's international except the recruitment of international students and services to international students that are full-time. So that's a very open-ended agenda. And we have many stakeholders, many partners in this, and many clients, because above all, we are a service unit. And so whether it's the students, faculty, the executive, our international partners, we're there to support and serve their agendas, but also to provide leadership. And without question, I was thinking of, what would I share with you? And the question of what drives me is, well, I've always wanted to contribute to the success of Ryerson. That to me has always been important, because if I'm not doing that, then I can't be happy in my skin. I can't be comfortable with who I am and what I'm doing. And what does that mean? That means different things at different times and different contexts. And over the years, without question, the international agenda at Ryerson has changed. When I first joined Ryerson, it was very much about large projects. We had a project office in Southeast Asia, all kinds of things. But you have to remain relevant, you have to be out front, and you have to be thinking of where are you going next. And that means that you have to be aware of what's happening outside of the university, and you have to be as engaged with that community as you are with what's happening within the university, and understand what's happening with regard to this country, the province, and what's happening internationally from our perspective. And so without question, always wanting to be aware of those things, and really and truly waking up every day and thinking, what is today going to be like? What is that contribution going to be? And that sounds, as if it's impossible. But somewhere in the back of your mind, I think that becomes part of your DNA. It then becomes just what you do every day.
Thank you, Marsha. Brandon.
Hi, everyone. So my role, I'm the coordinator of residence life and education. I've been at Ryerson for 1.5 years now, brought on by Jen Gonzalez, so thank you. Leading into this role, my responsibility is to manage all the professional staff who manage all of our student staff who are building residence communities. I am a firm believer that residence is one of the biggest classrooms on a campus. Currently, we have 852 students. We'll be growing that by 2,000 beds over the next 5 years. And I think one of the most important aspects of my role is really being responsible to facilitate and build community, not only within our residence halls, but within student affairs and Ryerson. And that's really what drives me. I think that since growing up, even my experiences as an undergraduate student and all of my professional experiences, I actually entered my 8th academic year as a student affairs professional. I'm really proud of that. I think being motivated by those communities that I'm a part of makes me more connected to the work that I'm doing. So again, even growing up, I think we're a product of our influence. And I think being at an institution where I'm motivated and inspired by the people that I work with, whether that's above, below, or beside me, that makes me more connected to the work that I'm doing. And I think that being at an institution like Ryerson, where that's fostered and that's encouraged, makes me want to think bigger and makes me want to do more things together. So looking for collaborations, building on existing partnerships, I think that's the best way to be connected to the work that you're doing. And I think a trick or something that I've learned that's helped me with that drive is if you're speaking a different language than somebody else, how can you find a common language that you can both build on? And I think that's the best way to collaborate and innovate.
Thank you. Okay, Carolyn.
I'm up. So, Carolyn Konrad, Director of Ryerson's Career Center. I've been here for just under a year. What is it that I do other than be Director of the Career Center? It's a lot more than that. It's about changing the dialogue together with our colleagues across Ryerson about how students, how the community view career education and integrating that into a seamless part of the student life cycle and really moving full circle from what probably most of our experience has been at the end of the day. A dusty office at the end of back of a university campus where you knock on the door at the end of your 4th year for a resume check in a little cubicle. That was my horrid experience in my own time as a student, and I don't want to put that on anyone else. But what drives me is obviously my own experience, but more importantly, my own beliefs. We spend 30% of our lives at work at least, and if I'm going to be going out every day, I don't want to be pushing pencils around. I really want to be making a difference, and I have a firm belief that everything we do here at Ryerson isn't just about making Ryerson better. It's a key and crucial link to the wider community we're part of. Marsha alluded to it, spoke about it as well. It's the GTA, Toronto, our country, Canada, the global economy. The world is so global today that everything we're doing here in our own roles has such an incremental impact on how the world works today, and that really is what drives me at the end of it.
Thank you. I was getting that from you. Actually, I was going to bring it up again, and it has to do with community. What's interesting is not all of you knew each other before we sat down at this panel. Is it important that you know about each other? And the reason I'm bringing it up is because where I want this to go is, what are some of the barriers that you might hit? And is it about who you know, what you know, all of that kind of stuff? How do you get through those barriers? That's 5 questions at once. So, I don't know. Someone say something.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
Barriers. I do think that at the end of the day, we can all look and say, oh, there's a barrier to that. There's a rule here, regulation there. I'm in this position, I can't do that. But what I've always thought throughout my career is that at the end of the day, every single one of us has the ability to make a difference within our role. And actually to push the boundaries of what that role actually means and is. My role previously was director of a department. Now it's about actually changing the dialogue of what we do and how we speak about career education. And I think I've found that consistently throughout my career, that change is such a constant in our lives that as soon as we start to embrace it and empower that change, we start to be the ones driving it rather than having it done by us. So I don't know if I answered all those questions, but
you did very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
To build on that, I think it also comes, I think a great lesson I learned, especially over the past year, is trust and being comfortable with not knowing, and whether that's trust within yourself or trust within the team that you're working alongside, or trust in just not knowing what could be next. I think that helps that creativity and adapting to those barriers that might come forward. So if you're comfortable with just not knowing, that allows you to continue pushing forward and creatively create solutions.
Do you think a lot of people are comfortable not knowing?
No.
No.
I think that, and I think that's something that I'm still learning over time. Like, there's a lot of colleagues who may or may not be even in the room that remind me that not knowing is part of I think the beauty of what we can create together as an institution. So I think knowledge is important, and I think that identifying those gaps, and whether that's through like formal assessment or just not knowing someone or an individual, allows you to figure out and to plan for what you need to know.
So maybe I look at it a little differently, and that is that we work within an institution, and there needs to be a bureaucracy for certain things. There are HR procedures and financial guidelines, and they're all there for a reason. And I really don't see any of those as barriers. I see that that's there to help us do what we do better. And I don't believe in trying to circumvent those. However, I think I'm not sure what I see as barriers, because I don't see that there's anything that I want to pursue, especially in Ryerson today, that I'm not allowed to. I feel that we are all working in an environment where we are encouraged to be entrepreneurs, where we're encouraged to be innovators, and where we also are not penalized for not always succeeding. And so the way that I view this is that, and if I think of an example, if I want to reach the head of if I want to partner with an organization, it never occurs to me that I am not going to call the head of that organization. Maybe I shouldn't, but it has never occurred to me at any stage in my career that that's not something that I should do, because I feel that as long as you have something valuable to put on the table, as long as you have a contribution to make, as long as you're willing to follow through on this, and there's a certain integrity in terms of what you're doing, then where would the barrier be?
So I want to call
sorry.
you. No, I love it. I love it. And you and I are very in sync with this. However, I want to call you on something, because you said that there's a need for your bureaucracy.
Yes, I think there is.
However, bureaucracy can actually make it very difficult for you to meet certain people, because you're being held back by various barriers that might be there. So how do you overcome that? And it might be the definition of bureaucracy that we're talking about.
Right. So for me, the bureaucracy would be the processes that are in there to keep this organization functioning in a way that it should. That to me is the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy does not exist for me beyond those things. That's what I'm saying. It just does not exist. I don't believe in it. I don't believe that if I am challenged or I feel that we should be moving in a particular direction, that we can't do it. And I'll just give an example. Ryerson had a very strong and long history of collaboration in Brazil. And I was very comfortable working in that environment. And for, I would say, maybe about a year, the president kept saying to me, so when are we going to go to Brazil? And I thought he was just kidding and being, polite in conversation when we met each other. And what else would he say to me other than, when are we going to go to Brazil? Because that's the sort of person he is. And so eventually I realized, okay, he's serious about this. And we did go to Brazil, and we had a rich slate of initiatives and projects that were funded extremely well, $12 million grants from CEDAR and so on, that I could expose him to. And that was great. Could feel good about that. But then he said, what about India? And I had never been to India. I had never done anything in India. It was, how am I going to do this? But then I thought, well, okay, so we are going to make it work in India. Ryerson's going to establish a footprint in India, and we are going to work with the best. And we had many dinners with the Indo-Canadian community and all kinds of things, and they said, well, Ryerson's not known in India, you don't have a brand, and York is there, and so on, and maybe what you need to do is to work with the tier 2 institutions. And I thought, well, why are we going to do that? Why bother to go? Why bother? If you're not going to work with what's considered to be India's best, why bother? And now I would say that we have, partnerships with several of the IITs. We've had their students come here and launch their companies in the DMZ. We have open zone startups in India, and we've done so many things. But it all started with just thinking, well, if I'm going to take the president to India, I'm going to have something to take him to. And so if I'm going to have something, I better get cracking. And it was really, so that's what I mean. I don't believe that there are barriers beyond.
So the word that I would use for your story is courage. It takes a lot of courage to kind of jump out of your comfort zone and be out there and try stuff that you haven't done.
But I also think we work in an environment where that's okay, that is in fact encouraged, and I think that's important, because I think if we didn't work in an environment where that was encouraged, I wouldn't be able to do that.
So Carolyn and Brandon, do you feel the same way?
I think being in an environment like Ryerson really means we can go the complete distance, as Marsha was saying. I do think that within each one of us, we can still achieve what it is we want to achieve in an organization. It shouldn't be about just because we're here, we're able to achieve all this, but because we are here, we are actually encouraged and cheered on and told, you know what, you don't need to have the full idea, the full blueprint on the table. You can just have that incubation idea and go with it, because at the end of the day, the success of getting there, probably when you got to the end of the India journey, it probably looked very different from what you actually thought it might, even when you envisioned what the success was. And so, I think so much of what Ryerson enables us to do is just to have that incubation thought and just start running with it and let it grow and see where it takes us to.
And I think it's our responsibility with an institution that's so creatively minded to also role model that, to build on what Carolyn said. So we're really encouraged to do that, especially within student affairs. An example, looking back, I don't know if I could have ever been part of this experience at another institution that I've worked at, but there's 6 of us rather, leaving on Sunday in an RV to drive to Vancouver to our National Student Affairs Conference for alternative professional development, to learn from colleagues from 6 other universities in the States and in Canada, but is also saving money and also putting ourselves out there to represent the institution as well. So I think to be at a school and to be part of an organization that encourages that kind of creativity is really a privilege that we can all take advantage of.
So I'm hearing a lot of pride here too.
Definitely.
So pride plays a big part of it. So you guys are fairly new to Ryerson. Yeah. So what did you think before, and what do you think now as far as how it's helping you be who you are?
I think it definitely walks the walk. I think it's more than just talking the talk. There's a lot of institutions out there that say we're new, we're different, we're shiny. But Ryerson, from my experience of just 8 months, really is about come in with your ideas and we'll just roll with them or drive across the country with them. I think that's really it in a nutshell.
For me, so I did my undergrad at Trent University, a very small liberal arts institution in Peterborough. My first job was at Mount Royal when it was a college. My last year there was when it shifted to university. And then I spent almost 4 years at McMaster. So Ryerson is a completely different entity, but also I think the combination of the best of what I appreciated at those schools. And I'll never forget the time when I left for Calgary and came back for a visit. So that would have been 2008 or 2009, and that was the first time I remember just seeing Ryerson everywhere. And I noticed that a lot of my colleagues through the provincial housing associations, but also within student affairs, were also moving towards Ryerson. So these contagious people that I wanted to learn from as a newer professional were all going to the same place. So I knew that that was something to think more about and think bigger. And I think the more I've learned, the more I've seen, and I agree completely, it really does walk the walk. And the reputation that I heard, it's kind of magical being here.
And I would just like to add that what I've noticed coming back to Toronto and coming here is actually how many students that, people I knew growing up, et cetera, have now actually chosen Ryerson as their institution after doing a tour down the road at U of T where their parents went and taking that decision to go, you know what, Ryerson actually speaks to me, not U of T. And that's one of the biggest changes that I've noticed since coming back.
That's amazing. Marsha, so you've been at Ryerson for how many years?
25.
Oh my God, this is your year 25. That's so cool. So now you've gone, like, what I'd like you to do is kind of describe what's happened, I'll say in the last 10 years, and how you've been able to kind of allow yourself to get to where you are now through the process. Because you've been here for a while, you've seen the growth of Ryerson, the way Ryerson was and is now. But I would imagine that you'd have to also change your style to accommodate it.
So I think, even if I just go back 5 years before that, 50 years ago, I've always been in a position of promoting Ryerson, saying whether it's to visitors who come here, who we are, what we are. And a lot of the time in the beginning was really struggling to explain this institution that was a polytechnic, that was a model for the college system, that was now a university. And, it was hard, it was tough. Not only to international visitors, but just even within the organization and within the institution, you had that sense. And I see some people nodding their heads, so they've been here as long. And really trying to explain what is this institution, what was our vision, that's changed so significantly. That is now, Ryerson is seen as this edgy, forward-looking, relevant institution, relevant to the students who come here, to the community, to government, as Sheldon mentioned this morning, and to the people who work here. I mean, there's a sense of pride, I think, in all of us that I see now that wasn't, I don't think people ever felt ashamed of working at Ryerson, but I think there's this enhanced pride, if I can put it that way, in terms of being a part of this organization and part of this institution and where we're going. And how has that allowed me to get where I am? Well, I think I've had excellent managers. I've had people that I've reported to have allowed me to grow. And I always remember one person saying to me that I always work to my potential and not necessarily to the job description. And I hear some of my colleagues saying that to me now, which I think is equally important, that I want everybody around me to feel that they're doing that. And so that they too feel that they have a say in the direction in which our unit goes and what we do and how we implement this internationalization framework that we now have and how we partner with others across the university and outside of the university. So I think it's the good fortune of having great colleagues and great managers.
I'd like to explore that a little bit more because it has to do with support. How do you feel supported? What is the way that you like to be supported? What would you like a manager to be for you? And how are you a good manager also? People.
I'll start, I guess. I remember, so when I was a student staff member in my undergrad, I had 3 different professional residence life coordinator facilitators as my supervisors, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'm supposed to create this management style now. It's my first year as a new professional. I'm very pragmatic. I had to have a structure. And I decided I was going to do the best of what I liked of all of them and never do what I didn't like of that each of them also offered in terms of support. So by integrating that, I've created the style that really has just been really adapting to the needs of each of the teams I've been a part of. So I think that's what I do need from a manager as well, which is that trust piece that is built, I think, 2 ways, and that opportunity to think big and creatively and explore ideas together. I think it's we can't think like islands. I think we need to think not only for our departments but the greater need of Ryerson. And I think that by allowing yourself to do that and having the support and trust to take those chances and making sure what you're doing in terms of your work aligns with the institutional priorities, but also gives you a chance to add your own flair, I think is one of the best opportunities.
I think one of the big things about being a manager is giving your team the room to breathe and to not clip their wings. So I really encourage my team to come up with ideas and then just run with it. It doesn't matter if it fails, frankly, because what's 3-6 months of our lives, and it's probably going to get us to the place that we want to be. So that's a big driver for me. And the other driver for me, actually, probably shouldn't say it, is actually we've all had those managers that, frankly, didn't do such a hot job of it. And I always kind of remember those individuals who have inspired me to actually make sure I do the exact opposite. So I have to say that, to give credit where credit is due. Think about those situations that didn't quite work in terms of helping a team to get where they need to be, and really being conscious of your own behavior to stop yourself from that. And then picking up where Brandon was saying is really having the ability from my current boss to John Austin to really just think big and go the distance. And I try to replicate that with my team.
Okay.
Well, I think I always like to be challenged and to challenge others around me. And so I welcome, being challenged. I also want empathy, and I want to be empathetic towards others. I want to know that when I'm struggling and when I'm having a tough time, that the people who I work with, the people who I report to understand that. And I want to be sure always that I am letting my colleagues know that I do understand when they're in a tough spot, whether it's a personal crisis or whether it's a challenge at work, that really and truly we're supposed to be there for each other. And trust. I want people to trust me to go out there and represent this university and be the very best that I can be, and that I am never going to do anything to harm the university or its reputation. And similarly, I will do the same thing for my colleagues. And maybe on a more personal level, I think of my kids always saying that I was never a disciplinarian, but I always had expectations. And so,
that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
And so it was, for me, it's the same thing. I think this institution has expectations of me as an individual and as a professional and the contribution that I make. And I think that I have expectations of my colleagues around me, and they know what those are. So as long as we can work in that framework, it's all cool.
That's fun. I'm going to ask one more big question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. The big question is about where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years? Like what is it that you would like to be able to do?
I'll let my colleagues answer that first.
Well, I've got an easy response, so maybe I'll start.
Pick a number of years. You pick.
Well, the fact that we're growing substantially in residence, 2,000 beds in the next 5 years, I am building on a great foundation that currently exists with our program, at the same time strategically thinking about how we're going to be hiring currently 35 residence life staff, which will soon be 96 or more, thinking about our program and what we offer, our living learning communities, which some of you are a part of as members of the university. So I love that I'm in a place where I get to play a little bit and think of what I can build with the professional staff through the influence of student affairs, but also take that feedback from campus and our student leaders that are living in residence. So I think I have a bit of an easy response because I know exactly what 5 years or more will look like, but that's exciting.
That sounds really cool.
I would say that there's so much meat to chew on here at Ryerson that I definitely see a hell of a lot to play around with, to use Brandon's term, over the next 5 or so years. I think with a lot of roles, a lot of institutions, you walk in and you can see yourself thinking about that exit in 2 to 3 years' time. And Ryerson definitely gives that opportunity, and I'm going to use that phrase again, to play around, explore, and really challenge the boundaries, not just at Ryerson, but in society at large. So.
So this morning, Mohammed mentions 3 things, the talent, the intellectual capital, and social capital. And I think for Ryerson, we are definitely out front in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship now within Canada. I think we have to keep running. I think we have to keep ahead of that game. I think that we also have to look at the issue of intellectual capital. I think we say that we are a comprehensive university best known for innovation and entrepreneurship. Well, that means that we have to have excellent engineering programs, and in all of the traditional areas, we have to be a university. So I think we have to challenge the status quo and say, why don't we have a school of medicine? Why don't we have a law school? And I think it's extremely important that we see ourselves as part of that challenge. And it's probably not the answer you expected me to give, Val, but I think that is also going to be important for us, and how we do that, how we are part of that, and how we shape that, and it's going to be important. And I think we all have a role to play in that. And so, to me, I want to see this, yes, being the best comprehensive university in Canada known for innovation and entrepreneurship. And so I think it means that we also have to have excellence across the board in all areas, including our academic programs.
It's a great answer. Thank you. That was great. Now I'm going to throw it open to everybody here. Does anyone have questions? Oh, hi.
Going back to Val's first question, right? You talked about what drives you.
Pride in what I achieve in my life. And going back to what I said earlier, we can all just go to work and come home, but you live once, as far as we know. And I really want to make sure that I've lived up to my full potential each day. And speaking from personally, your own background influences you a lot. And I often think, my grandparents came to this country with, having to start their lives over from scratch. And if they could do that, then surely I can do that much more. And I also think, I lived abroad for 13 years, and a lot of what I saw was a lot of lethargy. Everything's being done to us. We don't have the ability to do it to ourselves. That attitude really steered me to make sure that I didn't live my life that way. And another factor really is thinking globally. There's so much happening in this world that, what seems like an unsurmountable challenge when you walk into the office, if you actually step back and think what so many people deal with on a daily basis, we're actually very privileged to be living in this city and to be working in this institution. And that really is what drives me as well.
It's changed so much over time, and I've done the formal activity of building a personal mission statement, but I've also thought about where I was a few years ago to where I am now, and I think the big difference there is fulfillment, and looking at if I have different cups that make up me as an individual, I want to make sure that each of them are half full. So whether that's something that I want to learn about, whether that's the work that I'm doing, or my life outside of work, making sure that I have that balance. I don't think there's such thing as being 100% balanced, but I think that making sure that your needs are being met are really important. So making sure that I'm connected to what I'm doing and who I am as an individual, I guess, would be how I define my own personal mission.
Actually, I wouldn't mind throwing that question back at all of you. Would anyone else want to share what their mission is? What drives them here? Yeah.
I don't remember where I saw the quote, but I remember when I first started at Ryerson, this quote came across my computer screen and said, "It's better to dig a ditch with friends than to build a skyscraper with a bunch of sociopaths."
I like that.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 4 years. And I love Ryerson. I love the people. I love the environment.
And more comforting.
Got that emblazoned on our
Not the
wall.
psychopaths. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I want to know who said that, too. Anyone else want to share? Yes?
I'm in sort of very weird area of Ryerson. I manage the collections of student fees.
Oh, okay.
My job now, I look at it not as a quote-unquote collections job. I look at it as a prevention job and an education job.
Interesting.
Not only through my wonderful staff that I have, but in dealing with students. Recently, last year, we started a financial literacy program for students at Ryerson, and it was fairly well attended. 2 semesters. It's the first in Canada. And what I'm looking at there is if I can take 5 students and educate them on how to manage the little money that they have, I don't have to deal with those students down the road. And that's, and we're starting to work now with the Math Center, Jack Winka and others to expand the program, and hopefully it'll go very well. So collections at Ryerson is just not collections. not, pay your money, you're coming to school, you have to pay.
I love that.
Part of it,
Yeah.
it's still it's an education process.
You're reminding me that Sheldon shows us a slide when we do a lot of speaking engagements, and he has a slide where it's hockey, and the guy's about to hit the puck. And it was Wayne Gretzky who said, "Go to where the puck is going." And that, I think your story really illustrates that. Yeah, oh, you saw him. Okay. Oh, you saw it this morning?
Yeah.
Old news. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. But it's an interesting thing because it really is, if you're planning, like if you're thinking about what the students really need so that they don't have to go through the pain, it also solves your pain as well. It's awesome.
I want to keep the job, so we're going to keep a few students.
Or change the job. Okay.
Change the job. I just wanted to share out with my colleague here. I don't know you, but I work at the University of Danston, and I was recently at a meeting with one of the big 5 Canadian banks, and they were applauding the financial literacy program here at Ryerson.
Amazing. That's amazing.
TD did come to see us because they didn't want to reinvent the wheel.
Oh.
And they're doing, quote unquote, an online program. Ours is live classroom. So they came to see us recently, and while we had the opportunity, we also hit them up for donation.
But that's amazing. So what's happening is that all of you are contributing to where Ryerson is going by really being on that edge and by not holding back. And is there anything that anyone would want to offer up also as what else could we do better so that we can support each other more? Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about the communication piece, because I think that's so instrumental. And I think I've only been here 7 months, and it's a great organization for lots of entrepreneurship. And at the same time, sometimes I have to find out about things externally instead of internally. And I think that as we build on our entrepreneurship, it's going to be more critical for us to communicate great things so we don't also reinvent the wheel and can learn from the great models that are within the organization.
How are you communicating right now?
Not as well as I can do.
But what else?
Things that I do,
Yeah.
I try to get out to meet people in different areas of the university as kind of part of my mandate to learn more and also to share more about what we're doing within our faculty working against.
Awesome. Thanks. Does anyone have any other questions for the panel? Oh, O'Neill? O'Neill, do you have a question?
Yeah, but I think she might have said, so we have these zones, and it's funny talking, there's this gentleman like in collections actually that I work with named Peter Fox. And I've probably talked to this man, emailed this man for over 4 years. We have a great relationship. I've never met him. Right?
Go have coffee.
And then I go to other meetings and stuff like that, and I hear about stuff that's happening, and I'm thinking, oh my God, why are people doing that? So we've concentrated all this innovation or entrepreneurship within the student structure, and if I wanted to sort of tap into sort of things that are happening and how we don't have that pool yet within sort of like the employee, so in a free sort of zone within itself where I can sort of say, throw out something, here's what I'm thinking of, because I work with Hispanic Gaps, which is our access arm at the university, and so we actually work with all the faculties, and so we have an opportunity to see what's going on there and how we can help their community engagement and all those sort of things. And so I got an opportunity to say, oh, well, they're doing this and you're doing that, maybe you guys should connect in some way so we can do that piece. But if it was sort of more of a formal sort of a way that we could do that, I think it would, like the literacy that I'm hearing about today, which I want to follow up on, and other pieces. And just like what the MAC conferences, when I come in, I go, I see that person, but I didn't know, right? And then I can go over and talk to that individual.
I think it's awesome. I'm hearing that, so one of the things that we could do right off the bat is just have more activities like this where we can meet each other. I know I'm very fortunate. I get to go to a lot of conferences and I get to meet colleagues from all over the place. And this is where I get to really talk deeply about things that we all care about. And I think that these kinds of meetups, which is why I love this so much, is it gives us an opportunity to meet our fellow people that we might talk to or might not, but could really help us all do more for the university. And communication, I think, is critical, absolutely critical. And there's multiple ways we can do it. There's not going to be just one. But if we all feel that we should be communicating, it's going to actually help us. So I'm not sure. How is my time? Is it pretty good? Oh, we're done. Okay. Oh, look at that. Well, does anyone have any last comments? This has been absolutely wonderful for me, just to learn about, and what I love about all of you, too, is the passion that you have in this audience. Like, I could feel it, and I could feel that you all really want to make the difference and be entrepreneurial. So what's kind of cool, and I think the entire panel has said it, is that everyone feels supported here. That's beautiful. I can tell you it's not happening a lot in other places, and that we're showing the world, to your point, that we're showing the world better ways of working is also kind of nice. So thank you.